Thanks Safety Wing for partnering with us on this episode. Summiting a mountain before breakfast?
Play the theme music. Hello and welcome to this episode of Tripology. I'm Alan and I'm here with the ever elevated Adam.
Mate, I'm feeling a little bit nauseous and I've got a splitting headache.
Yeah, those are some of the symptoms of altitude sickness.
They are, which apparently anyone can get at any time, and even if you've had it before, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get it again.
I told you before we went on an incredible elevated hike, I said, altitude sickness can hit anyone. Doesn't matter if you're an Olympic athlete or a slovenly slob. Altitude sickness can strike all the same.
And I have to trust what you say because you've recently, well, within the last year, completed the Everest region. So you seem to know quite a lot.
I didn't complete the Everest region. What would that look like?
That's what you said. That's what you said.
Traipsing with every single patch of ground in the whole region. But I did some hiking in the Everest region. I had some pretty gnarly altitude sickness just for like 12 hours or something.
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily that concerned, but I also didn't know how high we were about to go.
Yeah, well, let's rewind and tell the audience the story of not only your first real altitudinous hike, but your first time traversing a glacier.
Yeah, it was wicked. Not a new one for you, but it was pretty spectacular, wasn't it?
We'll go on to say it was one of the more spectacular glacier crossings that I've ever done.
I can't wait to show the footage, all the videos and stuff. I can't wait to post them online because I've never seen anything like it. I think I mentioned a few times on the day that it was otherworldly. It was like walking across that glacier. It was like a different planet.
Yeah, let's provide some context, man.
So staying in Gulkin in the Hunza with an amazing family, Raymond and Satara. And
name check on the podcast. Nice.
Yeah. Raymond and his son Ali, they run the Hunza mountain tour. So we are going to put all this information in the description, of course, and try and send you their way. If you are interested at all, send us an email and we will give you all the information. But it's a lovely little homestay, isn't it? Amazing. Surrounded by apricots.
Yeah, Gulkin, I think, quite an unusual little town.
Yeah?
It's basically sort of nestled away in the Hunza, and we've been exploring the Hunza quite a lot.
Yeah.
It's sort of a town whose economy, lifestyle, belief system all centers around the cultivation and subsequent drying of apricots.
Yeah, and you hadn't had too many apricots, if any, before getting to Gulkin. Is that right?
I had my first apricot. When in a previous episode, I think in last week's episode, we mentioned being looked after very much by a gentleman. He provided me with our first apricots.
Yeah. How would you describe them to someone who's never had an apricot?
I think it's my favourite fruit.
No,
now.
your favourite fruit.
I love it because not only do you get the beautiful, tender, sweet flesh of the apricot, but within is the kernel. We've all heard of that, but maybe the listeners don't know. You can crack that kernel open and there's sort of like an intense hazelnutty little morsel within. And I like it.
And apparently multi-use, the apricot, because they're not only delicious, you can also make them into jam. You can also
cure almost any disease with them.
Yeah, you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
We have mentioned over the last few weeks that I've been blocked, shall we say, and this family, amazing local recipe, local traditional remedy, soaked some apricots overnight in water, and then the morning after I drank the water. Very sweet, very sugary, delicious, and within 15 minutes I was right as rain.
It's almost too regular, if anything. He was regulating all over the Hunza.
So yeah, maybe too much information. Hopefully you're not listening to this while you're eating your breakfast, but do it basically, don't take laxatives, just soak some apricots overnight and hey presto.
Yeah, so they were dried apricots soaked.
No, I think they were fresh apricots.
They're really?
I think so.
My goodness.
Either or. Chuck them all in.
They were sat there. I went to sleep with those apricots in a bowl with a plate on top, and I was told, don't so much as look at those apricots until Adam has sipped on the water because they'll regulate him. But that's probably quite enough gastrointestinal chat, considering it's been a theme for the last 3 weeks, because through this family we were staying at, and through our time in the Hunza and some recommendations that had been given to us, bandied about, we thought, you know what? Let's hike Patundas together.
Patundas. Yeah, many people who work in the travel industry, friends, people that we met along the way, all of them said, if you can only do one, it's usually 3 days, 2 nights. You can probably do it 2 days, 1 night. The Patundas is the one to do. So there are obviously lots of treks in the region, some harder than others, some longer than others. We had a finite amount of time, so we decided to go for it.
Patundas is a big hitter in the Pakistani hiking world. And a lot of people might think, the Pakistani hiking world, that sounds quite niche. Maybe it is niche, but Patundas transcends its nicheness. And we thought we have to experience this.
Yeah, it's pretty diverse, isn't it? The hike itself. I mean, we start off by a place called Borrit Lake. Lovely hike along the glacier. So you can already see the glacier in its entirety almost. We heard it's 27 kilometers long, the glacier.
That's so long.
That's really long, even for a glacier.
What was your first impression of the glacier? Because it was the first time you'd ever seen a white glacier before. We obviously mentioned the rocky glacier that we'd seen days previous when I destroyed my hands traversing a slope. But this was the first time you'd seen an ice glacier.
I would say very rarely, especially when I'm traveling, am I speechless. But it was one of those breathtaking moments where I thought, this looks like someone's invented it in their imagination. I said to you, it looks like there is a valley and someone has got an enormous can of whipped cream and sprayed it all the way along the valley.
But not sprayed it with the kind of methodical, like, sense of artistry that you might expect from an omnipotent creator. Sprayed it with the sort of willy-nilly silliness that you might expect from someone having a laugh on a fantasy weekend. It was a right proper, spray of cream all through the valley. And that is what makes it quite hard to traverse. Now, when you told me we were going to hike Patundas, I thought, Adam, I'll be your guide, mate. You don't need a guide.
I've done a glacier before.
I've done a glacier before, mate. Just follow me. You'll be fine. But my experience on the Rocky Glacier, I lost some confidence.
Oh, really? You were feeling a bit shaken up?
Do you know what? The injuries weren't that extensive, but when you do fall down the glacier sideways, when you go to bed at night, I've learned, you'd start having a look at the way you've lived your life a little bit.
Reflecting on the decisions you've made.
And when the Pakistani people kept on saying to me, you can't hike Patundas without a guide, and I looked at them like, yes, I can.
Yeah.
I came to realise that was arrogant.
Because one of our good friends in the travel industry who has done the hike many times said, definitely don't do it without a guide. It is dangerous. No, seriously, it's legit dangerous.
So I conceded. I said, okay, Adam, if it will relieve your anxiety, we'll get a guide. We'll take a guide. We'll go with a guide, mate. It's fine. And that's how the three of us, tripology, con guide, started to do the glacier. And I'm here to say right now, without the guide, we would have passed away on the glacier.
The dream team with Kareem.
Yeah.
Kareem, he was the man. He was, how old would you say? Maybe late 40s?
Maybe. It's difficult because when you are on a glacier learning to be a guide, you will spend a lot of time under the sun.
With the reflection of the sun from the ice back onto your face. Maybe it's double.
But also spending a lot of time hiking on the glacier, staying fit. How does that balance? You've got sun damage, but excellent cardiovascular activity. So I'll say this right now. He could be anything from early 30s to late 80s. And I'm not sure which side of the fence I sit on.
But he was a big, strong man.
He was.
And he was carrying some of our stuff. And we weren't carrying a lot of our stuff.
I just had a fleece, a spare t-shirt, some contact lenses, and a bag full of dreams, baby. I was ready to go.
I'll tell you something we also didn't have.
What?
Crampons.
No.
Now, I would have said that walking glaciers, maybe crampons are usually essential. I'm not experienced, but on this one, I wish we had had crampons because we were slipping and sliding all over the place.
Yeah. I would have said, really?
He also didn't have crampons.
No. Just walking shoes.
Yeah.
I think he put on a pair of Converse at one point. We were sliding around. As soon as we stepped on the glacier, it became apparent that this was unlike any glacier I'd ever walked on before.
Really? That, for some reason, that fills me with satisfaction.
Why? Tell me why.
Well, because we had a back and forth, didn't we, about whether we should do this?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was prohibitively expensive, but it was a lot of money in comparison to how much we'd been spending.
Yeah.
And you also weren't sure at the beginning whether we needed a guide. That was really the majority of the cost. And we were looking at the time that we had left. We'd already done a few really amazing day hikes. I wanted to do a lot of hiking. Was it really worth it? We took a bit of a punt. And I was thinking, God, I really hope Alan enjoys this. I hope that what we do is enough to justify spending 2 days and this amount of money doing the hike. And then as soon as we got on the glacier and you cracked a big smile, you were like, mate, this is sick.
Yeah, because straight away, I mean, it sounds ridiculous to be like, oh, my concern was it was going to be similar to a glacier I hiked in Everest with crampons on.
Yeah.
But as soon as I got on that slippy, slidey ice rink of a behemoth, I was like, wow, this is crazy. And then before long, we were walking, there was like portals to the middle of the glacier with flowing water going down maybe 20 feet, 30 feet, just descending down. And if you lost your footing, you'd slip away down to that glacier and no one would have known. Kareem would have heard a sound, turned around with his youthful ears and been like, now we are one less.
Yeah, there's only two. Then there were two. So we hiked for a couple of hours to get onto the glacier. Then when we got on the glacier, a bit of a rocky start, just because the start of the glacier was rocky.
Yeah.
Not because we couldn't walk on the rocks.
Covered in rocks.
And then when we got onto the middle of the glacier, it became apparent that it's not for the faint-hearted.
It became apparent to me when I saw Kareem wielding an ice axe.
Yeah.
And I'd never seen an ice axe in use before. I've always thought ice axes may be great for like ascending if you're doing ice climbing.
Right, yeah.
Kareem was using the ice axe to construct staircases for us up the glacier.
Yeah. I thought my preconceived idea of this glacier, which, by the way, probably worth saying, is 1 kilometre wide in some parts. The mountain that we ascended after this is on the other side of the glacier. So that's where we're going with this. We have to cross the glacier, then ascend the mountain, and then summit, etc. We'll get onto that later. But in order to cross the glacier, I thought it was going to be me, you, the guide, who knows the way, knows the path, because there is a very easy path. You just got to know where you're going.
That's what the impression I was under as well.
In actual fact, he created the path because the glacier is changing on a daily basis. Yeah. And sometimes you've got to cut staircases into these big icy ridges.
He would run up an icy bank, sort of spy at a distance, then go, okay, we'll go this way. Then scurry down and use his ice axe to carve out some like footholds for us to use. We would then follow him like diligent Labrador puppies.
Yeah.
And then eventually, mate, and you know, we really need to sit down and talk about this. There was one section where he tied a rope around his waist, handed me the loose end and said, hold on a minute, and proceeded to straddle what can only be described as a sort of stegosaurus ridgeback of ice.
Yeah, it was pretty thin.
Pretty thin.
Wasn't it?
Yeah. And he would carved out little footholds in it, got to the other side at the end of the rope, and I said, are you all right, mate? And he went, I feel stuck. And I was like, yeah, I mean, good to feel stuck, I suppose, rather than feel yourself descending into the abyss.
Yeah. Because, I mean, either side of that ridge was, I wouldn't say almost certain death.
Yeah.
But if you didn't die, it would have been a surprise.
Yeah, you'd maybe be stuck for a few hours and die of hypothermia or die instantly by falling into the void.
Yeah, and I have got a video of this, by the way.
Yeah.
The bit that he's carving out, so I'm going to post that on the gram.
And just for context, all of this is beautiful. It's like so stunning, icy blue, ice sheer walls. It's really amazing. But he's straddled there. He feels stuck. He finally sort of uses the ice axe to pull himself back up, gets to us and goes, okay, let's go.
Yeah, I was, I'll be honest, I made it clear that I wasn't comfortable. And I think that I let it snowball.
Your anxiety.
My anxiety. Because I thought, if I do slip, it is almost certain death.
Definitely.
And we haven't even got to the top of the mountain.
Was that a big priority?
I think the fact that I sensed a little bit of danger from him as well. He wasn't completely confident that he had picked the right way. And he said, look, if you're not comfortable, we can try and find another way. But I could see that you really wanted to do it as well. And
I was excited, mate.
I was looking at it and I thought, I know that physically I have the capability to do whatever it takes to get over there. You just got to stay calm, put your feet in the right footholds and not slip.
It's one of those things where the footholds are all there. You'd have to do something wild to really like mess up. You'd have to
do you think you'd have to do something wild?
You'd have to like deliberately take your foot out of the hold and like fandango your way off a cliff, I think. Granted, you could just slip and lose footing and then panic and you sort of slide down. But I think if all danger was removed and you were doing it in a gym and they like recreated the glacier out of foam, you'd do it.
Oh, you do it every time.
Every time.
Yeah. I guess it's just the consequences because the stakes are high. But I thought you maybe will regret not doing this.
Yeah, and I really wanted you to do it, and that's why I went first.
You did go first, and I appreciated that. Also, with a rope around you.
With a rope around me.
With him holding it, not me.
You didn't want to hold my rope?
I wanted to, but I was just worried I wouldn't be able to take the weight.
Yeah. Wow, man. I'm glad you didn't hold it because you were right nervous little ninny holding that rope. You'd have probably shaked me off the edge of that glacier.
Like most things I'm responsible for. The rope starts, flicking off into the distance because you've fallen down the crevasse and I'm going, oh shit, Alan.
Yeah, you were holding that rope with all the accuracy of like a fisherman reeling in a sea bass. I'd have been in terrible danger. Well, I made it across.
You did.
No problem. I see you back there weighing up. Do I go? Do I not go? And it was that moment I thought the only way to calm down from all this terrible danger is with a brief meditation break. If you're anything like us here at Tripology, you travel a little bit on the adventurous side.
I am famously risk averse, but it's important to be smart, and that means travelling with insurance.
Because if you find yourself sliding down the side of a glacier, you're going to want someone to have your back.
We recommend Safety Wings Nomad Insurance. It covers you all over the world, and the coolest thing about it is you can purchase it, even if you've already started travelling.
So if you're floating down the Nile in Africa, or you're holding a baby capuchin in the Amazon, and you realise you need some insurance, it just takes 5 minutes to apply.
That's no time at all, and it's geared towards travellers and nomads alike for just a few dollars a day. You can be totally covered.
It's the perfect way to get instantaneous peace of mind. I really recommend it. Just subscribe and get continuous coverage whilst you're travelling.
We've left a little link in the description below.
Yeah, go and click on the link. Support Tripology, get Safety Wing Insurance. Like a glacier, ever shifting momentarily, piece by piece, towards the mouth of the river. Allow your conscious mind to return into your brain. Adam, you're about to ascend the glacier.
Yeah, I was really worried. It was nice to see you on the other side, having already completed the difficult part.
Yeah.
And
you said, Alan, what are you standing on?
Is that what I said?
Yeah. What is it like over there? And I went, oh, Adam, it's like a beautiful icy pasture. It's so stable and secure over here. You'll love it. Why not take a step over?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for the coaching. I needed it. And I remember looking into Kareem's eyes and wanting to make him proud.
Seeing nothing but fear from him. Because he was nervous that you were nervous, he told me.
Oh, really?
He said to me, I felt fine, but then when I thought that you weren't fine, I wasn't fine.
Oh, no.
He was flowcharting in his head. He was like, am I fine? Is Adam fine?
I think also because there's only 3 of us and it was quite intimate, he became towards
Not in that way.
No, not on a glacier, Kareem, Jesus. It was like... I didn't want to be the one in the group who was letting the team down, because I was very aware that if he thought that I was scared and I was incapable, he would then choose an easier route across the glacier, and I wanted us to have the all action adventure experience. So I went over the part that we're talking about, the very scary part, and it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was an anticlimax, but it was much more straightforward than I thought.
It looked heroic, and I took a very brief video of it, and you can see that on Instagram at tripologypodcast, because as part of a highlights package of Patundas, because you did really well. I was proud of you.
Thank you.
I thought you conquered a fear, and I thought from here, the world's your oyster.
Yeah.
You've conquered a pathological fear of glacial hiking. You've got there, and now I knew the summit would be no problem. You climbed over. I could feel tension leave the group. Kareem let out a big sigh, and we continued on.
Yeah, it was wicked. So we crossed the glacier. Then after doing that, I mean, I wouldn't have said it was a breeze, but it was enjoyable. It was really enjoyable.
I loved the whole hike, man.
Yeah.
It was definitely the most interesting glacier crossing that I'd ever done. Just in terms of beauty, in terms of sheer, technicality as well. I've never used the ice axe. But then the hike itself, we saw ibex.
We did.
Never seen an ibex before.
They're really interesting animals, aren't they? Huge horns.
Yeah, really big horns they have, and they traverse up the side of mountains, ever so dangerous. You'd think, how is the ibex not plummeting to its death? But for millions of years of evolution, making it perfectly adapted to stick to the side of the wall of the mountain like some sort of spider, except with 4 hooved legs.
We saw, I reckon, about 3 or 4 herds in total.
Yeah.
And it is strange. If you haven't seen a video of an ibex climbing, certainly down, because there was a moment when we were ascending where we could see, I felt like they were running away from us.
Like almost as if I felt bad because I think they thought we were chasing them up the mountain very slowly.
Yeah. But that was just part of the trip. We just had to get to the top. So
yeah, exactly. Well,
it wasn't to chase them.
If there's any way that we could have phoned ahead and told the ibex, look, we're going to be going to the mountain, but it has nothing to do with you. But they saw us as some sort of imposing threat. Like, God, will these guys stop chasing us?
We're going up as well. It's just the first day of the trip.
Happen to be in the same area.
But I mean, talk about sheer.
Yeah.
It would be so difficult for a human to do what they do, and they do it at speed. They jump down and with almost like all 4 of their hooves on the same piece of rock.
Yeah.
It seems incredible balance and agility. And I guess that they've got to be able to do that because they're running away from the elusive snow leopard.
Yep, exactly. That's why the ibex does it, because I think they deliberately choose challenging routes in order to avoid predation. They know that the snow leopard can't chase them down the mountain that way, so that's why they choose it. But I do want to talk about sheer, and I do want to talk about the impending possibility of falling,
right? Because
there was one experience that I had the displeasure of having on this hike that you weren't privy to live.
Yeah.
And that's when we got to our little base camp.
Yeah, we got there in the evening. It was
nightfall had happened.
Yeah, it was around 7 o'clock, if I remember rightly. So because we were so high up, do you remember how high we were?
4,200?
Yeah, it was. I think it was a little bit less than that at the camp that we stayed at that night.
That is quite high. That is like altitude sickness territory.
And I remember Kareem, bless him, he was mumbling to himself as he was unpacking his bags, unpacking the food that he was going to cook later that night.
Yeah.
And he said, we started too late. And what he meant by that was we started the day so late that in actual fact we've got up to base camp in the dark.
We pitched our tent in the dark and Kareem said, I need one of you to come and get water with me.
Yeah.
Because no one's left water in the hut that we're staying. There is no water. We need to eat some food. The walk for water, I didn't know this at the time, but it was going to be an additional 1 hour hike in the darkness.
And no one told me. And it's important to mention this. There was no one else there on the mountain. I think we were the only people. We saw a German couple down at the base of the mountain and they chose to stay there. They were going to summit the following day, but we were the only people there. So for probably 4 hours walking up and then setting up the camp, no one was around. And we pitched a little tent next to Kareem's hut. And then you said, I'm going to go off and get some water with Kareem. Be back in a bit.
So from your perspective, that was it. You were just sat in the tent waiting for me to come back with some water so that Kareem could start the dinner.
In my head, I just thought there's a little spring, a mountain spring nearby. He just needs one of us to carry a couple of bottles. They're going to walk to the spring and come back within, I don't know, say 15 minutes would have been appropriate.
That's what I thought as well, Adam. And that's how I found myself walking across the flat top of the mountain with Kareem.
Right.
And then down slightly into a path that was maybe 20 to 30 centimeters wide.
Yeah, so it's pitch black at this point.
Pitch black. I'm using the phone light.
Yeah, are you both, you got a torch each? He's got a head torch or something.
Got a head torch, yeah. And I've got a phone light. I'm carrying 3 bottles of empty bottles, right, to fill. And it's like a 20, 30 centimeter wide path that is so sheer that if you fell or misplaced a foot, you're plummeting to your death. Like down sort of like a similar road to the one I had my hands on, the Rocky Glacier. You just roll all the way to the bottom. And it's also silty. Right. So like with every step, you're kicking debris off the track and you can hear slate tumbling down the mountain.
Yeah, I mean, after already ascending the mountain that day, super tired, fatigued, legs aching, I bet.
Yeah.
It was, for me, my experience, obviously nowhere near as scary. But when it got to like 45 minutes, I went to the toilet outside and I remember thinking, I've been looking at my phone, editing photos and stuff like that. I remember thinking, what happens now if one of them comes back? Which scenario? Because now it's been too long where I think something's gone wrong.
Yeah.
Which permutation of the possible outcomes is the best for me? If they both come back,
that's great.
But I'm in a mood.
Are you annoyed?
I'm thinking, why the fuck have you taken so long?
Why did anyone tell me?
Tell me it's going to be an extra hour or 2 hours or however long. If Kareem comes back on his own, I'm not going to believe a word he says.
Alan's gone now. Yeah. It's me and you at the top of the mountain.
Yeah, I mean, what am I going to do? Just, all right, cool, I'll deal with that in the morning.
Go to sleep.
Yeah. Or if you
I'm not eating any of your cooking, though, Kareem.
if you come back on your own, maybe that's the best case scenario.
Right. Well, this other than us both coming back.
No, of course, yeah. If only one of you is going to come back, I'd rather it was you. But then what the hell are we going to do?
Shit at podcasting.
Yeah, I don't know how to start a fire.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was really genuinely very concerned, actually. And I thought, I've got to think now of a plan. Because if neither of them come back, I've just got to sleep on the mountain.
You can't really descend at night like that.
No, I mean, I would just have to go to sleep. And then wake up in the morning and just walk down and tell someone.
A solemn walk. Can you imagine that walk down the mountain?
I would have been running. I'm sure I would have been like an ibex.
Yeah.
I would have descended down quicker than they can.
They'd have been like, oh my God, he's chasing us in reverse. Yeah, absolutely nuts, man. Well, while you were having all these anxious thoughts, I was traversing this tiny, tiny road. And at one point, I took a step and a big piece of slate slipped from under my foot, tumbled down the mountain with such force that Kareem screamed like he just thought that I'd gone.
Oh, God.
He heard the slate tumble and he was like, no! And he turned around and saw me there. He was like, oh my God.
Jesus.
This is so dangerous, he said.
Yeah, that sort of humility where your guide, your experienced trekking guide, is also, shitting their pants.
Yeah.
It all becomes really real, doesn't it? Very real then.
I mean, it was 35 minutes to a little stream on the side of the mountain where we filled up bottles and brought them back to you. Yeah. I knew that you were going to be anxious by the time I got back because it had been a ridiculous amount of time.
But how did you calm yourself down after that? Because wasn't that on the way to get the water, not on the way back?
That was on the way to get the water, yeah. I calmed myself down by only bringing one bottle of water back, so I had more hands free for the journey.
You had to cross the same section, you nearly fell down.
Yeah, but it was much easier, knowing how dangerous it was and carrying less water.
Yeah, sure.
I was able to shore up my footing a little bit. It was just a crazy journey, man. So we went to bed that night feeling a little bit bruised and scarred.
Kareem, bless him, cooked us some load of rice.
I mean,
vegetable and rice. We had 2 full plates at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. Went to sleep and he said, sunrise is going to be about sort of 5, 6 a.m.
Up at the crack of dawn we were.
Yeah.
And we summited. Mm-hmm. A little challenging little slate hike, very crumbly old path to the summit.
It's weird. I guess they would call it like a meadow, wouldn't they? So you ascend this mountain and then it sort of opens out into a plain that you can walk across. We saw 2, 3 separate herds of ibex, which was amazing. And then really difficult, pretty annoying terrain up to the summit, wasn't it? 4,300 I've seen quoted on some websites.
Wow.
Before 7 a.m, which is quite amazing.
Now, one of the more beautiful summits I've ever done. Really great to have that panorama of the glacier and of the valley.
Yeah.
You feeling a little bit worse for wear?
I had such a bad headache. It felt, honestly, like a hangover. Exactly like a hangover.
Altitude sickness often does. Is that your first experience with altitude sickness?
I think I had once in Mount Kinabalu, actually. Borneo. Yeah.
Okay.
And I just remember having a very, very extreme headache. Although that happened on the way up quite quickly and maybe could have been dehydration.
They often feel the same as well, and hydrating can help with the altitude sickness. I guess we're really recommending the Patundas hike for anyone that goes to Pakistan, anyone that's interested in hiking, anyone that's interested in nature and beauty and all that stuff. Any tips, as someone who's recently recovered from altitude sickness, any like little top tips? How'd you get through it?
The altitude sickness?
Yeah.
I mean, luckily it hit me on day 2.
Yeah.
And then I really wanted to summit. It was kind of... it was there and then it wasn't, and then it got really bad on the way down. We descended pretty quick and I noticed an improvement.
Just goes away, doesn't it, when you descend?
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. But
you're good at drinking water as well. You drank so much water.
Yeah.
I was glad that we went on
I had to
journey.
justify you nearly losing your life.
Exactly, yeah. I felt like vindicated.
Yeah. But the altitude sickness, I pushed through it. It's just amazing how crippling it is and how much it changes your experience. Because when we came down, Kareem, bless him, had met us halfway, hadn't he? He had a lion.
Yeah, Kareem we just let sleep. He didn't want to summit.
We hope his boss isn't listening, because I don't know if he was supposed to have a lion and not summit with us.
He also revealed to us halfway that he was incredibly sick.
Yeah. Oh yeah, God, he had a kidney infection. Yeah. But he started cooking breakfast for us, didn't he? A few boiled eggs on top of the mountain, which was amazing. Nice cup of chai, bit of bread, and we sat together on top of the mountain afterwards. And I thought, I was looking around at the scenery and the fact we'd just summited together. I thought this would be so much more enjoyable if I could take it in and not think about how much my head hurts. So it is a shame. I mean, whatever medication you can take, do.
Acetophylamine or something like that, Diamox.
Yeah, and maybe just take it easy. Do you think that if you were to do that hike over 3 days and 2 nights, maybe you'd acclimatise and maybe reduce the risk?
Yeah, definitely. Going up so high, so fast is like altitude sickness territory. I mean, we started at 2,000 and went up to 4,000 plus in one day and stayed there overnight. Yeah, I mean, it's a miracle if you don't get altitude sickness in those conditions.
Fair enough.
Not the end of the world, altitude sickness. I think you did really well hiking with it.
Yeah, because you also had a splitting headache in the morning, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so definitely worth pushing on.
Yeah.
I thought it was an absolutely extraordinary view at the top. And anyone that is going to do any hiking in that region, highly, highly recommend Patundas. Go with a decent guide. Maybe push for crampons on the glacier.
Yeah, maybe get some crampons. But for me, highlight of Pakistan. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah,
I'm really happy I went. Apologise for my hesitancy to get a guide and spend the money. It was obviously necessary. And the hike itself, one of the best things I've ever done and one of my favourite things in Pakistan. So I'm really glad. Thank you for persuading me. So maybe the lesson, the little moral of this story is don't be so stubborn. Sometimes you need to just fork out some cash, get a guide. And definitely glad that I didn't miss out on it.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. I'm really glad you enjoyed it, because I was a little bit worried, and I remember saying a few times throughout the hike, are you enjoying it? Are you having a good time?
And the answer, always yes. On next week, Adam, we're going to propel ourselves to the, infamous Fairy Meadows. This little place here in Pakistan. What's it famous for? You'll have to see on the next episode of Tripology. But you can get it 24 hours early if you head to our Patreon. It's patreon.com/tripologypodcast. Episodes come out early, and there's a little bonus section after the episode where we go all crazy once the theme music ceases.
And if you want to send us an email, please do. We'd love to hear from you. Any sort of stories or messages, we can always read them out. That's tripologypodcast@gmail.com.
That's right, man. Let's blast off into next week for more adventures in Pakistan. We'll see you there.
We'll see you there. Bye.
Oh, just when they thought it was the end of the episode, they were about to scroll away, weren't they, Adam?
They were, but we've got one more thing to say.
Yeah, because we want to tell you one more time about Safe Viewing's Nomad Insurance. Not only is it our favourite way to insure ourselves from our hiking amongst the glaciers, but you also can get access to it using the link that's in the description of this episode. Go and click on it.